Hi guys, look at this. That's where I was a week ago, and it's why I'm jet lagged. So that's Las Vegas Open. I was demoing there with Artis Opus at our stand. Thank you for all of you who came to say hello. This tutorial is 4 Chaos Shields. One of them turned out particularly beautifully, and due to popular request, we've demonstrated that on a miniature in time-lapse at the end, just to show you that the Tzeentch color fade can be done very easily. You just take exactly the same method and you do it elsewhere on a model. That's it. Let's jump in. Okay. Who have we got up first? I'm going to do this one in Slaanesh. So the technique that we're going to be using for basically all of these shields, think of it like our recent slap shop video. So you're going to have a base color, black equivalent. Ours is going to be a bit metallic. Then have a heavy dry brush mid-tone, then a light dry brush highlight, and then we're going to pop a wash or a contrast down all over the entire thing to filter it. We're not going to be doing anything different from that unless we have an exception of adding another wash, which we'll do at the end, or adding another highlight that we can do at the end. You could also add weathering at the end, or of course, you can add anything you like. They're your miniatures. So let's make a start. Base coat wise, for the majority of these, I'm just going to be mixing a metallic with black to get a very dark version of the metallic. I could mix it with brown in the gold situation. So I've got Retributor armor here. I've got Abaddon black here, which is quite a weak black, which is kind of helpful. And then I've got Vallejo Game Air silver here. And what I'm going to be doing is I'm not going to be using lots of different metallic paints. I'm just going to be doing things to these two metallics in order to change them and make them suitable. So this one, I can grab a little bit of the black, a little bit of the silver. This is one of my older brushes, by the way. It still looks pretty clean because I look after them, but you can see it's worn down. It's got a bit shorter. So this one's kind of reserved for base coaty feeling tasks. And we're making this slightly darkened version of a color between gold and silver. I can drag black in according to exactly where I want it to get to. This should base coat in one go. Pretty incredible. Yeah, there we go. I mean, look at that. Pretty fast, one coat coverage, wonderful. It's not pulled anywhere because we're stippling it. We're not layering it into those gaps and kind of catching it in there like melted butter. All right. I mean, that was really fast. I may as well base coat some other stuff while I'm here. So that's nearly dry. And clean my brush. I can do this on the palette specifically because I might want to test how things are going to look. And this is a very similar color to my previous layer, as is that. We have a metallic palette. There we go. So even though we went pretty hard and fast there, we've still done a decent job of cleaning. On to the next step. All right, so I'm probably going to be using medium or large for this. Let's go for medium, see if it's helpful. In fact, it's not going to be. I just want a big brush always, don't I? Okay, so we essentially want a lighter version of this color. Obviously, we're not going to include black like we did. That's a very simple step. Start things off, a little bit of gold. The silver is proportionally a lot more strong. So if we make a 50-50 mix, it's basically going to be entirely silver. And then because it's so strong, I'm looking to remove quite a lot off my brush. You can see it's still coming really easily. And then here on my palette, I can test if it's got to the stage where it's just going to pick out highlights, which it has. So you can go left to right, or as default, just do buffing. This might not look like it's doing a huge amount. It is. And the most important thing it's doing is it's laying a foundation for our next step, which is going to be quite a lot brighter. Okay, super quick. Obviously, it's a small piece. And then for this step, basically, I'm just going to keep whatever gold was in the brush, even after a little bit of washing. That's not going to be much at all. And I've got the pure, extremely bright silver, mixing it around. So that is going to mix it with the gold that's in the brush. And then we're going to do our final highlight over here. Now, this is quite a light one. Our base coat was quite light. So we're hoping to get a lot of the work done on the piece from the next step, which is the shade step. Obviously, if you're doing this on multiple pieces rather than a single shield, it's far more efficient because each of these steps you're spreading around a lot more. So regarding the shade step, you could make it out of whatever color you have in your army. Do not feel the need to tie yourself to contrasts, even if they're wonderful colors. Just use whatever one you think fits the best with your army, and you can mix it into contrast medium. We're going for quite a soft wash here. It's not like mega strong. So you can just put a little bit of paint in with this, whatever that may be, and it'll work out really well. You could use a green at this step and it'd look pretty awesome. I, however, oh, do we go crazy? No, no, we absolutely don't. This is why we test, guys. That's more like it. I want Volupus pink, but I want it soft. Take some of it on our palette. Far too strong. Softer. Softer. If this goes wrong, I can just wipe it off really quick. So we're going to test somewhere. No, I'm okay with that. So because we've got our lovely soft mix, it should do a really nice job of pooling exactly where we want. I'm going to go all over with this. And we're not going to rush it, and we are going to kind of pull it out of any places where it seems to be pooling. Here, here. Use a nice big brush that's got good mopping abilities. And we're going to get in there and scoop it out. You can do that just by pressing the brush in. It'll pull the bristles open and they'll suck up what's there. Now, top tip, you've got some rivets. Rivets are gold as far as making your painting look better than it actually is. We're going to make sure none of those are missed at the very least. And if we want, we could particularly choose to dot them. Okay, no missed areas, no excess pooling. I'm going to keep it at that orientation, being facing upwards. We're going to let it dry without changing it around. If I was to take that and tip it like that, we would ruin our paint job. So hold that in mind, be patient, and let's see what it looks like once it's dried. All right, so we're dried. It's actually looking really good. There's probably one area of excess pooling here, I would say here. Should be okay, not too much of a big deal, but yeah, I should have mopped up from that area. Take the same brush that we had before. I'm just going to go for pure silver now. So you could absolutely leave it here if you're going for a fast paint job. I'm going to do 2 more steps. One of them is going to be all over and needs to be very subtle if possible. So I'm going to remove a lot of the silver. You can see it's affecting less and less of my texture palette. This is magic. This can do a lot of work here. It's going to soften out those raised areas, and it's going to give the kind of weird, just off silver with a hint of gold, a real kind of ethereal quality. Make sure you hit the edges, which is quite hard when you're holding it by them. And take your time, don't rush, you're already going pretty quick. Okay, that's looking great. What do we do next? So we have a little bit of a subtle plan for getting some very, very lazy and efficient gold in there. This is Seraphim Sepia. Just going to test how it looks here. Now, this should, it might not be strong enough. I can fetch something else. Not strong enough. Okay, we've got a little Cassandra yellow. See how that looks mixed with our sepia. Now the theory behind this is that with the purple under it, it should make a slightly cooler, richer gold than it would do if we just used it on our own, on its own rather, and we're just going to use it over the trim. I'm using a great big brush here, by the way, guys. It's a 4. Cool, yeah. You can deposit as much or as little as you like. I kind of want a decent coverage over all of the section apart from the edges. So I'm dabbing it on there fairly carefully, making sure we don't miss anywhere. Manchester's noisy today. Sorry. It's the contaminated medium police. They caught my dip earlier. All right. Running out of places to hold it. That looks really great. So obviously you could do that twice or you could use a stronger one if you wanted. I'm absolutely fine with it how it is. I think it looks great. Let's move on to the next one. We're going to use all the same types of techniques, so I won't cover them as thoroughly for the next ones. We'll just go through the paints, but use the similar method. Look at that texture palette. It's going to be metallic completely by the end of this. Okay, so the next one that we're moving on to is Khorne. Now the reason that I haven't base coated this is that this one, even though we're looking to end up with the majority of it being red, we're going to be base coating it and painting it before the filter of the red with gold, because we'll get a really nice rich red out of it. So to make sure that it is nice and rich, I'm going to mix in a little bit of brown. So I'm going to use a little bit of dried bark. You could use Scrag, you could use Doomball. Doomball's probably the best for this type of gold. It's a little bit warmer, but I do want something to darken down the first step. So, I'm going to drag our Retributor and our brown together. This might take 2 steps, but it should go pretty fast. Retributor is very, very strong by gold standards. There we go, 2 thin coats, did the job. So for our first dry brush, we're going to be going up to straight Retributor. We do want to leave some of our base coat in the recesses, so this is going to be a slightly lighter first coat than we did on our previous one. And as ever, if you're not sure on the direction of your stroke, just paint it in little circles and it'll turn out absolutely fine. Final step is to mix a tiny bit of silver in with that gold. All right, so we're looking great there. Now, wash-wise, we're going to be doing a selective wash on the non-trim areas. I want the core of it to be flesh tearers, so let's test it on a relevant section here. So it's brilliant, but it's incredibly strong. I want it a little bit more purpley. So, touch of Sigvald in there. That makes it look more like blood, incidentally, and quite disgustingly. So we're going to need to dilute it quite heavily for this. That's about what we're looking for. Now, because this is metallic, even though it's dry brushed and we mixed in some not metallic paints in the first steps, we may have some issues with it kind of running off details. We'll have to act accordingly and roll with the punches as far as that goes. You can see I'm being quite a bit more careful here than I was with the other one. That's because we're looking to leave the trim. You've got to work quite fast. So what I suggest is going up to your trim carefully, quickly, and then kind of blocking in the middle sections. I think maybe I should have diluted it even more. It is very strong. Okay, that's looking pretty good. We've got a bit of a drift here, though. That's because I've played with the orientation, like I always say not to. And I've got the same here. All right, I'm going to stop playing with the orientation, leave it to dry, and we'll come back to it. So we had some little issues with drift. Not the end of the world, but not quite ideal. I also realized that I missed an entire piece of this, which isn't great. So we're going to quickly rectify that now. At least it's around a rivet, so I can kind of hide the fairly obvious omission. Right, what we're going to do about this gold. So pretty much similar to what we've done already. I'm just going to deepen it with some sepia. This should also hopefully hide any mistakes that we've had. And just for coherency, I'm going to mix a little bit of our red in there to deepen it. Use the same dotting motions that I used in the last one. This should ensure that it kind of collects in the middle or around the rivets and pulls away from the edges, which makes it look like we've done edge highlighting that we didn't. So you just want to make sure that you hit the middle of all sections. All right, so it's looking great. And then we're going to repeat our final step again, the silver gold final step. I want this to be extremely light. I'll test it on some trim first. We're good. If anything, that's probably too light. What this is going to do, though, is it's going to pick out the slightly raised areas all over the shield, and that's going to hide the mistakes that we've got going on. So it'll focus on the pitting, kind of bring things up, and it'll also highlight those edges for us. Up to you what approach you want to take. I'll probably have it a little bit lighter on top, like it's reflecting the sun. Khorne is done. Now you could absolutely wash that again if you wanted it more red, or you could put a varnish all over it to make it look deeper. Either of those would be really effective. So we're on to Tzeentch, which I would say is probably going to be the most tricky of these. I'm going to dry brush this up just through silvers. We're just using pure silver, but we're going to be taking our time with it. So it's not diluted, it's very strong, it's very bright. We want to remove quite a lot of it. And then we're just going to look to bring the entirety of the shield up. So instead of doing 2 steps, we're doing 1, but it's going to take longer. Very, very subtle. Now it's Tzeentch. How are we going to achieve something shiny with this? Unsurprisingly, we're going to be going for some type of a color change. Let's put this on a holder, probably going to get messy otherwise. So what I have here is I have a strong turquoise and a very weak turquoise. One's a lot lighter, kind of towards green, than the other one, which is towards blue. What we're looking to do here is to get a quick color transition on our model. So you could do this with any mix of contrasts. It's worth testing them out first, so we're going to do that quickly on our palette. Here's the weak one. Find a silver section. It's very weak. And here's the strong one. It's very strong. Okay, now we've hit a problem here. These colors, they look too similar for me, so we're not really going to get a color transition out of that. We could pick a completely different color here, or we could have it kind of go towards a purple or something like that instead, which I think is what we're going to try. Magos purple. Now that is undoubtedly a very Tzeentchy transition. This is going to be the trickiest one, like I said. What I'm going to do is we're going to work a little bit slower, and we're going to work with quite a lot of medium in there. That should mean that if anything goes wrong, number one, we can wipe it off, which is really useful. You know, can literally 100% or as close as possible reverse what we've done. But it's going to increase the working time and allow us to maybe smudge between some colors a little bit more easily too. So purple on the bottom. Take some of our Magos. Magos isn't crazy strong. Wow, it's not. Do note, guys, if you're using big brushes and you rinse them, they're going to hold quite a lot of water in their bellies. So hold that in mind if you're wondering why your contrast just got weaker than you thought it would. Okay, I don't think we have time to be careful with the design. We'll find another way to work around that. So there's our purple. There's our stronger green, turquoise. Then here's our very, very, very weak one. Okay, that went surprisingly well, considering that we went really, really, really quick. I just want to make sure that I don't leave any obvious errors, so I'm going to pull up some of this mess here, and I'm going to dump it. I need to get some purple in the middle of that symbol to kind of push the idea that we do have a transition all over. Okay, we're going to mop up any obvious areas that are too heavy, and we're going to repeat it. I've got to be very aware that I just hair dried that, because hairdryer makes a huge difference to the speed that contrasts dry, even when they've got quite a lot of medium in them. So what we're going to be doing for the following steps is we're kind of using it a little bit thinner, a bit more like a glaze. We're not looking to kind of blob it quite so much. Help. This is awful. That was literally, that was the worst timing ever. That could not have been more perfectly bad. So we're just going to have to, we're going to have to roll with it. Obviously it's fully dried there now. We can't do anything about that. Push these areas. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this purple, up the blue, and up the blue a little bit. And then we're probably just going to have to make a call on that is solid enough for army level, rather than fiddling around and trying to get it perfect forever. Obviously, you could blend this to your heart's content and spend as much time as you want, but we're kind of going for at least speedy-ish techniques here. So we're going to mix our purple and our blue. And pull it against those edges, because it'll make our painting look better than it is. I'm going to do a couple of stages of it as an intermediary colour. Like Magos is a lot weaker than you'd think. Looking pretty good. Got one final step to kind of pull all this together once it's dry. So what we are hoping for here is that a final uniting dry brush really does its job, pulls everything together and makes us look like we're better painters than we are. I mean, basically that's all we do on this channel. So hopefully we can pull it off. Removing a lot. It's pure silver. It's quite scary. Super gentle. Make sure we catch all those lovely edges and details. Nice. Could actually wash that star with the same gold that we've used elsewhere, and it would really work. Maybe we should do that. I'm gonna use Fuchsin Orange for this. Mix it with a little bit of sepia. Sepia? Sepia. And 2 steps of that should give us a pretty nice kind of slightly weird gold, which feels appropriate for Tzeentch. Should pretty much drown out the previous colours. All right, 2 steps of that and we're good. Just to show you that turned out so much better than it had any right to, especially after the pot mistake. It's even got a thumbprint on it for good measure. That looks great. That would be a super, super striking army. You could go over it again with the glaze, or you could do less of the silver if you wanted to have the colours more evident as well. I kind of like that weird, like, pastel-y-ish metallic effect though. I think it looks awesome. It's like a candy. Right, Nurgle. Everyone's favourite, right? So what I'm going to do is if it's still alive, none of it's still alive. We're going to mix a little bit of black in for our first step, and we're going to do a 2-step dry brush to have quite a lot of variation within this shield. See if we can wake up any of the black. No, too much hair drying's gone on this desk. Okay, so here's our shield with that kind of dark, metallic, slightly gold silver going on. We're just going to bring it up once, heavily, with a silver that isn't too bright at all because it's got that black in it. And then the next step's going to be very light, very quick, and that's going to catch all of the edges, hopefully really, really, really readily. I'm actually going to jump to a definitely clean brush, just to make sure that we only get pure silver here. Nice. Right, back on its holder. We're going to take a 2-step approach to this. The step 1 is with our admittedly fairly weak Magos purple, but we are fine with that. Now this is going to concentrate largely around those blobs, but any details and recesses. So we're getting it all over, but we just want to make absolutely sure that we've got enough on those areas. This is our way to add depth to the next step. Same for rivets. I'm going to make sure to pull against all the details and stuff like that as well. Okay, let that dry. Now, I hope that's strong enough. We could have actually used Sigil Burgundy, I think. Next step is Croak Green. We'll find out immediately if that isn't strong enough. I think we're just about okay. So we're going to take a couple of layers of this, but that should add to the general idea of kind of clotted filth that everyone loves about Nurgle. So I've done one additional step, quickly get it. They are mega fast, these. They're basically glazes. And probably with Nurgle, it's the only exception to the rule that you don't want excess pooling because you can get away with it, I think, a lot more than you can with others. We need to decide what we're going to do for that, but I'm pretty sure that a purple will look great on it. I'd use something vibrant, but Magos is okay, I think, because of the fairly drab green we've used. We don't want a crazy deep saturated purple going on. And just as with all of our other trims, I'm going to be dotting it to encourage it to pull and highlight these edges for us. Great, I think that's pretty solid. As Nurgle, I'm going to do some chipping highlighting on this rather than dry brushing, I think, just to suggest the age to it. Let it dry fully first though, of course. Just going to exaggerate a few of the bigger blobs. Join Nurgle, can't really go wrong, can you? Okay, so I'm going to go back to the medium that I used for the highlighting on this. I'm going to pull back in and add to some of the silver, the dryad bark here, just because the silver we're using is nut strong, and I don't think that's the best idea for chips on a Nurgle shield especially, so this will just help pull it back a little bit. Not what we're going to be doing is just concentrating on the edges. See if I can hit those spikes as well. And then just in a pure silver, if we want to do edge highlighting in a lazy way, we can get away with that as well with the dry brush. There we go, that looks great actually. That'd be a really nice scheme. Okay, they turned out really well. I mean, the shields are excellent, so we've got to give credit to the shapes that are allowing us to wash that successfully, but they're all great. Let us know which is your favorite, if you'd adapt these in any way, if you've got any hints or tricks for using contrast or shades over metallics in a slap choppy style. All of them welcome, and we'll read each and every comment. Let us know what you would like to see next in this style. We're definitely on a little bit of a metallic trip at the moment, so anything you struggle with metallics in general, let us know and we'll make sure to hold that in mind while creating our next piece of content.